First thing to say is happy 1st of November. You'll all be pleased to know there's 37 work sleeps left to the big day. For a rather that, you're part-time. That's just 8 more shopping weekends, and Manchester's like to go on the weekend, so it'll soon be upon us. I'm sure you've walked through to get here through the Christmas markets, which suddenly arrived overnight, dropped in by the aliens. Scott talked a lot about the industry professionalising, that apprenticeship standard, giving that, I suppose, that stamp of approval. You know, for those who've been around the industry for a long time, when you talk to people, that corridor conversation, that elevator conversation, what do you do? I work in employability. What's that? Help people? Oh, why? How'd you help them? So, you know the conversation. And I guess the apprenticeship standard is the next stage in evolution. So, nice little link to our Employability. And I guess try to recognise really over the last 20 years how employability has evolved and moved on from the early beginnings, from some of those early DWP contracts about improving people's work prospects, and there's a few nods around the room, to then helping people get a job. Then we've seen work programme really move on about helping that stickability, helping them sustain in the job. And I guess the question for all of us in employability, what is the next stage of that employability? What does that look like for us? The industry's in a transitional period. Some of the larger programmes which have been in play, commission programmes, are coming to its natural end now. So there's some big questions to be asked what that looks like. So, little description. Who here, show of hands, sees themselves as solely working in employability, in the main? Couple? Not as many as I would have thought. Skills. How many would see them solely working in the skills environment? Couple here. Okay. And anyone who sees themselves working straddling across both employability and skills? Okay, that's good. Okay. So I guess employability and skills, I've been in employability for 10 years. Quite often when we look back, they've worked in silos. Employability has done its own outputs and outcomes. Skills has worked over on the other side of the fence, with its own outputs and outcomes. And I guess how we see the future moving is there'll be a lot more collaboration, a lot more partnership working together. And I guess we see that now on a day in, day out basis. Why is that the case? I guess we had a reminder on Monday when the Right Honourable Mr Hammond was at the dispatch box talking about some of the fantastic numbers that have been achieved in recent times. 3.3 million more people in employment in the last 8 years. There's a forecast, some might say optimistic forecast, of 800,000 more jobs being created. Doesn't quite say in the small print if they're new jobs, or jobs to replace something else, but there's certainly jobs there in the marketplace. Unemployment's at its lowest since 1975, just 1.36 million people unemployed now. That's a staggering achievement, and I don't think we should overlook the support and the efforts and the contribution that people in the employability sector have made to that. Migration's falling for the first time in a number of years, and those statistics alone will present our industry with a number of challenges as we move forward and evolve. But unfortunately our work's not done. We see that day in, day out. Some recent statistics from Joseph Brown Tree Foundation that they've published, there's still 14 million individuals in this country who are living in work poverty. That's 1 in 8 workers who live in poverty. And something really resonating that's stuck with me. Gingerbread released some information statistics recently, and they've done a survey of single parents, and 1 in 10 single parents who they surveyed rely on payday lenders and food banks to get by. And that's a real shame. but it also presents the next challenge for us. What does that look like? Because their challenge is that this industry will have to overcome universal credit. We've not even touched on that yet. That's the biggie. You know, it's a big challenge, lots of noise, don't need me to go into all the detail around that. So I guess I'm hoping really some of these are a bit thought-provoking, prompt some thoughts, prompt some feedback from you guys, certainly through this session. Don't really want to talk to you for the next sort of 10 minutes. It would be good to get some feedback from you guys on where we see some of the next challenges that we need to overcome. I might like to think I've got all the ideas, good ideas, but I don't think I have a monopoly on all of them. But universal credit, we're all aware of that. There's some good work at the moment. There's some pilots going on, in-work pilots, and they are proving that support to those individuals is effective. Yeah? So we can't just leave those guys out there once they go into employment and on the universal credit and expect them to sort themselves out on their next destination. They're going to need support. Increasing employer commitment. For those who see the marketplace update that comes out on a regular basis, there's some statistics from CIPD released. And quite staggering really, 60% of SMEs who were surveyed said they had not taken on a young person for their first job in the last 3 years. Heavy. The education to employment pathway. Again, CIPD figures. 60% of those employers they surveyed did not know what a T level was. Some real education that needs to go on. But there's some good work going on in GM. You know, we've got the mandate for curriculum for life. There's the good work going on for the bridge for GM. There's lots of good activities on the ground, but it's not enough. We need more. Challenge will be the priority groups versus the higher skill need. Did you know 70% of AEP is spent on level 1 qualifications? How will we bridge that gap to meet the industrial strategy needs, to increase the skills for level 3, level 4? How will we meet that? You are the people to do that, and that's a big challenge. The apprenticeship problem, not sure I need to say too much about that one. The increase in working age population, people living longer, working longer, etc., etc. How will we engage that older workforce in learning? For those who lack that confidence or that motivation to get to that point, nah, I'm not doing any more of that. But they're going to need them to, because there's going to be a shortage of those skills in the future.
I think there's a really interesting dynamic as well, is because invariably as people increase in their working age, they're likely to have health-related issues in work. And as a society, we are absolutely dreadful at talking about disability or mental health. I can quite imagine people who've worked in a firm for 20 or 30 years not wanting to disclose in any way that they are suffering some form of health condition, particularly if it's one that is degenerative with age.
Absolutely, and these are all taboos that we need to overcome. You know, I guess the employment figures have shown themselves. The worklessness agenda will remain for the priority groups, but it's as much as those people in work who are going to need that support moving forward. Changing employer trends, sectors evolving, growth industries, how employers recruit. The latest fashion at the moment is for employers are introducing logical-based recruitment rather than hardcore skills recruitment. There's a lot of changes going on that we need to keep up with, that we need to respond to as well. The digital revolution. Are we ready? Is everyone ready? Are people ready? Because I think we're not even at the start of it yet. There's a lot to happen. Thinking future, 5-10 years down the line, we're talking about robotics. What happens with those people who are potentially displaced? What happens with those about retraining opportunities, etc., etc. We're potentially facing a situation back from the 70s, like the mining industries and the steel industries. That is what's upon us, the scale of it. And the local authorities here in GM, correct me if I'm wrong, for our colleagues from the local authorities, but there's only one of the 10 local authorities in GM which is above the UK employment rate. So that means 9 are below the UK's employment rate. Shocking.
Trafford are here.
But yeah, it's sobering news. So as much as we've heard this week about the rah-rah unemployment at its lowest level, jobs forecast on the horizon, etc., the austerity is over, there is still a lot to do for us in the industry. But what we do will just be different. Any thoughts, guys? Any big ticket items that we may well have missed in consideration? Just throwing out there.
Like you mentioned the changing employment trends in, but also we've seen the rise in terms of the economy, instability, and all that leading back to the in-work poverty is the type of work.
Absolutely.
It's all right having low unemployment figures, but what's the status of those jobs? How good are those jobs?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the quality of those jobs. We see it for those who work across our sector. Whether it's from a housing association, whether it's from a training provider, skills, employability provider, local authority, we see it. People are just getting by. Barely. We see it on the news. News Northwest seems every night has a food bank feature. It's 2018 and this is happening and it's real.
I think there's also something not just in the increase in working age, but I was reading something the other day about there being now, for the first time where people are living long, you've now got 5 generations working together in the workplace, and what that means in terms of how they then need the skills to learn to work together and understand how different generations sort of operate as well. So there's some dynamics in there too, and how you get the older people to then transfer the skills to the young and pass that on, and that transfer is something in there too.
No, absolutely. There's a little anecdote I come across this morning, and I asked permission if I could use it because it really brings home the challenge that's ahead for us. But as part of some of the work within schools, a headmaster was engaging with a number of pupils around employment support, etc. And a star pupil, have you heard the story? There's a star pupil who was academically flying. Getting ready, she was a star pupil in a specific subject, Spanish. School had high hopes for her. She was the standout student and able to sort of linguistic terms that they'd seen for a long, long time. So coming up to GCSEs, everything was hunky-dory, all the sort of preparation was done, the mocks went really well. And basically didn't pass GCSE. So there's a bit of a post-mortem, what went on, trying to get to the real detail of what it was. And it wasn't the academic element of it. The question was describe a day at the beach in Spanish. It was a written exam. She couldn't describe a day at the beach. Because she'd never been to the beach. And that's someone in a school in Manchester, in the Northwest. So there's challenges there. Right, we've got lots to do. So, how are we going to do it? Employers are key. Critical. I mentioned before, CIPD data. 60% not offered young people a job. 60% don't know what T-level is. It's absolutely critical. Here at Seetec, what we're doing about it, we just finished a round of ESF contracts. Part of, most of you know here, there's an end of contract evaluation. We've been discussing with the ESFA, and they always like some feedback on how it's gone, etc. And we've told them, look, you're spending your money in the wrong elements. For those who remember sort of the good old youth wage incentive, it really had a kick. It really made a positive impact. You know, we need to get those employers on board, and if incentives is the way to do that, then so be it. Because unless we do something different, we're going to get the same result. Participant focused. We've got to focus on the individual participants, not try and fit the participant into a round hole of contracted provision that's available and fit a certain eligibility criteria. We are turning potential participants away from opportunities to learn, to progress, to develop, to earn more, because they don't tick a certain box on an eligibility criteria. For me, personally, that's wrong. We have to ensure and influence the right people to ensure that those people can take advantage of that. Commissioners. How can commissioners play a part? Outcome versus output, but also some of the eligibility criteria, where that's targeted. Does it need to be different, for example, across the 10 local authorities here in GM? Do we have a pan-GM one? You know, for so long we've had contracted provision, which is generally a sheep dip. Devolution has seen a lot of transition, a lot of improvements in that area, but there's still a lot more that can be done to give true power to those individuals, the participants, that they can take control of their career, their destination, their journey. I love good old clip art. So employability cog has been turning over there somewhere, skills cog's been turning over there somewhere, but if we can bring them together, it'll result in good work. And good work has a number of positive consequences for our communities. So, I guess back to our employolution, I guess where we are now, where we're moving to in the future, the next 5 to 10 years, it won't be focused about just getting a job or improving work prospects. It'll be about increasing work earnings of the individuals in our communities, helping them move to that next progression, helping them achieve that next job. And they're going to need our industry through expert people who are truly qualified and truly getting the recognition for that, to continue doing that good activity. Because currently there's a talent drain in employability, and it's a special job. It takes a certain type of person to do that job. Not everybody can do it. We've seen people come into our industry who think, yeah, I can do that, I can help these people. And you can't cut it, because it takes a certain type of individual. So we have to retain and keep our talent within this industry. And we're going to do that by focusing on the needs of the local communities. So thank you for listening.